Since 2007, I have been involved in a lot of projects in which we empowered young people to have leadership roles that they probably would not ordinarily have. And I might have been embarrassed or apologetic about this before, but now that we have a 34-year-old mayor in this city, I don't think I have to be embarrassed about this anymore. So let me tell you how this happened. I run something called NKF Cyber Nephrology that for 10 years, between 97 and 2007, had very ample funding from the National Kidney Foundation in the US. And we had a full-time meeting organizer person and a secretary and IT person. Surprisingly, in 2007, we lost funding for the program, but we're told that the National Kidney Foundation in the US wanted the program to continue. They just didn't have the funding for it. So I, at that moment, decided to keep everything going. We lost the full-time staff, but we started getting students to do the same things that these full-time staff people had done in the past. The plan was already there, the excellent, template for all these roles were already there. And this was very sudden. My main meeting coordinator left her post, and then we had a meeting about 2 months later. So we ended up with the young woman that you see here, Tori Sheldon, at the age of 19, being in charge of a $250,000 medical meeting and running it flawlessly. She was in charge of everything, the scheduling, the finances, you name it. And she has subsequently mentored other young people, 6 or 8 people in total. And I've had to do very little of the training that they sort of train each other. They've written a procedure manual for how all this stuff works. And so this idea of students mentoring other students has continued up until today. And so it has given me the idea that in the projects we're involved in Nepal, we could use students in a similarly innovative way, giving them roles and responsibilities that you would ordinarily never associate with a young person. I teach a course on the technological singularity, technology in the future of medicine, and surprisingly you'd say, well, what does that have to do with Nepal? Well, if you think about it, this whole idea of technology in the future of medicine is an important question, how that plays out in resource-limited settings. So we have a lecture that's given by Bibiana Kujek every term that it's taught, and it's taught both in the fall and the winter term. And we speak a lot about the role of technology in a country like Nepal. And I've tried to promote the idea that one cannot conceive of life as just the little bit of activity that you know well yourself. So that little bit of activity you know well yourself is related to a lot of other different kinds of activity. And so you can think of life in general, of the world being supported. And you may know this idea better than I do. This idea of turtles all the way down. So your own sphere of life, you may think that everything else in the world is static and your own sphere of life is the only thing changing, the only thing that needs to conceptualize the future. But actually you need to conceptualize the future of absolutely everything. So take my field of transplantation pathology, that's what I do in medicine. That's related to transplantation, to all of pathology, to all of medicine, to human society, to Canada, the United States, the whole world, the Earth, the universe, everything is changing. The essence of what it means to be a human being, all those things are changing just as rapidly as the little bit of human activity that I know well. And so you need to think of all the turtles, every single one, whichever one you identify with, they're all changing, they're all morphing, they're all moving in a similar way. That animal analogy, as intriguing or not as you find it, is limited. People, after a while, they get bored with it, you lose eye contact, it's just not working. There needs to be another way to stimulate people's thought about how different the future will be from the world we know today. And I've found a rather innovative way to do this because of an accident of fate, that in 1994, I began the Internet resources in kidney medicine. And David Crippen began the Internet resources in critical care medicine. The two of us are as different as any two human beings could possibly be. For one thing, you see that picture of him, looks like he's standing up and I'm sitting down. Well, most of my work life I am sitting down. He hardly ever sits down. He's won a number of military awards and honors and awards for bravery. I have had no military service. I've won a number of civilian awards. He has no civilian awards. I was a very boring young person. I did well in school, but otherwise completely boring. In the 60s and 70s, everything you would be aware of, in the 60s and 70s, David Crippen was a part of. He had long hair, he was a hippie, and so on. He flunked out of one school, he was kicked out of another one because of rules violations. His girlfriend looked him in the eye, told him he was a loser. She was leaving, he was drafted, he went to the military. He got back, he had bad recommendations, bad grades, but believe it or not, he had an interview for the University of Georgia Medical School, and a powerful person there thought somehow, although he had lousy grades and lousy recommendations, the guy had something, had promise. And what's the worst that could happen if they just tried and see what would happen if you put this guy in medical school anyway? So that's what happened. And in every way you can imagine, we are different, including what we've done in Nepal. Now, in 1983, David Crippen went to Nepal and he did adventure trekking. All sorts of dangerous things in the high Himalayas, and he found a Mani stone. It was illegal to remove it from the country, but he put it in his dirty underwear and smuggled it out, and he has it in his office today. Okay, and what have I done? I've never been trekking in the Himalayas. I've had this interest in the large part of the country that has no medical care whatsoever. And this is, that one picture there is an art object I brought back, which, is this turtles all the way down metaphor that you're learning about from me. This picture up there at the upper right, this is a family that I've come to know that lives in a village with no medical care whatsoever, and all the surrounding villages have no medical care. Any job you take there, they say you have to be in perfect health, because if you get sick, there's no option. You just have to go a long, long way from here if you get sick. And down at the bottom is a picture of the annual consultative meeting of Patan Academy of the Health Sciences. I'm the guy in the black hat there. And so in every way you can imagine, and I won't go through all the details, but David Crippen and I are remarkably different. He has his own rock band. He rides a motorcycle. I've never ridden a motorcycle. I don't have a rock band. His rock band's good enough. Doesn't just perform for physicians, it performs at the House of Blues. His rock band's really good. So now, what am I leading up to here? So for 7.5 years at the Patan Academy of Health Sciences, we have been trying to create a local fundraising development office. And there's money for this. There are a lot of strategic problems that in order to pay a Western-style salary to somebody to raise money like this, they get paid much more than anyone else in the whole system, so how would that work? And so on. There are many practical problems. But now, after 7.5 years, I'm sort of a focus of immense pressure to make this happen. The money's there. Why don't we? Because the school needs to raise funds. It's never gone after funds in a really organized way in terms of international foundations and so on. It looks to us like employing somebody locally alone by itself, while it's an important part of the process, will not work in itself. That we're going to have that person mentored, and I think that students could play an important role in this. And you say, what kind of student? You're probably, those of you who are students are thinking, well, I'm the wrong kind of student for this. I'm not sure you are the wrong kind of student for this. What characteristics would the student who would help us with this office need to have? They should be interested in a career in fundraising development, or interested in Nepal, or interested in global health. Well, probably all of you fit that category of being interested in at least one of those three. So you could probably help us. And I'm being asked today to exactly describe the structure. What are you talking about, Dr. Solez? What would the roles of the students be? And they're only students, what can they do? And so on. But I'm thinking that I can't answer that question until I find out what some of the people who want to be a part of this would actually want to do, what they think would be all the answers should not come from me. But what I'm saying is, believe it or not, I've made this student labor thing work. Up until now, we've done a lot of interesting things in other spheres. And I'd like to see if I could interest you, all of you potentially, and people that you may know, in helping us with this. Let's hope that in a year, Patan Academy of Health Sciences has a development office, has a development officer, and that people from Edmonton, including young people from Edmonton, are helping substantially to make this all work. And that's what I'm asking you for. Now, you know, this is a huge project, really. It's the largest global health project of the Faculty of Medicine at the U of A. So you'd say, well, Dr. Solez, this is a short presentation. Tell me all the rest of the details. Well, we've written a paper, and the paper has all those remaining details. I'll be happy to talk to you privately. But if I tell you all the other stuff, there'll be deep seething resentment of all the other planned speakers and everything else that was planned today that would be completely wrecked by me telling you everything. So I ask you to think about this. I'll be here for the rest of your meeting. I'm easily reachable. My email is kim.solez@ualberta.ca. You would find being engaged in what I'm telling you about today to be very interesting and highly innovative. You would end up doing something probably that nobody's doing anything exactly like that anywhere else in the world, and that's exciting. Finally, you may wonder about this idea of the alter ego. I'm probably the only person you ever met who has an official alter ego opposite. And how is that working? Well, I would say some evidence that it works pretty well. In one of the main meetings that we organized, was held in Brazil this past August, I talked a lot about David Crippen. No one there had ever met him. And a number of the people became convinced that he did not exist, that I was just a very good storyteller. I made this guy up. There couldn't be such a guy, they said. So I think that when a metaphor becomes mythology, then you've really succeeded in doing something. So I've somehow made this idea of the alter ego opposite work, and I could make your involvement in development office at Patan Academy of the Health Sciences work as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm pitching. And as I say, if you want the other details, they're in the websites that I'm associated with and the papers that we published. I brought along some stuff. This thing on the corner there is called the 60s and 70s. And that's all the interesting things that David Crippen did do in the 60s and 70s. And as you look through that book, you can be assured I didn't do any of those things because we are very much opposites. Thank you very much, and that's all I had to tell you about today. So this is the paper that we've written, and this is posters for the course, and I'm here the rest of the meeting.